Hey everybody, it's Logic Bomb 82 from the Mature Minded Gamers. We are a group of adult gamers who have jobs and lives, but also several passions, including video gaming, board gaming, and much more. You can join us by visiting our website, maturemindedgamers.com. Today we're bringing you our Star Trek podcast, where we cover the latest news and all things Star Trek.
What's up, everybody? This is Brad with the Mature Minded Gamers, and we're bringing you another episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 1, and we are going to cover episodes 3 and 4 tonight. I've got Will and Eric here to discuss what we thought of these episodes.
Hey.
What's up, everybody?
So we'll jump right in. Episode 3, Context is for Kings. We find ourselves watching Michael Burnham on a prisoner transport ship 6 months after she got court-martialed and the war with the Klingons started. So we don't really know why she's being transferred, but we know that something happens to the point that there's a big emergency, and she finds herself on the Discovery. And as she's on Discovery and kind of walking around, you can tell she's got a chip on her shoulder and she really doesn't want to be there. I was a little surprised by this. You'd think that maybe she would be, anxious to get back into the fray, but she seems hell-bent on sort of punishing herself for everything that happened. But Captain Lorca of the Discovery seems to have other plans. So I want to pause right there for a second, because in the episode, they kind of alluded to the fact that Lorca may have orchestrated everything to get Burnham on the ship. What do you guys think about that?
So, when I actually first heard that, thought about that, and that kind of conversation came up, I began to think, is like, man, you're like, what is really Lorca wanting from Burnham? And I didn't think anything like nefarious or anything. I just thought, well, there's some sort of scientific reason for Discovery and winning the war that Burnham's going to be able to do. I was kind of curious on why he needed her specifically.
Yeah, they definitely alluded to it, and it all kind of makes sense now when you think about it. What he seen an officer who was super smart, about to become her own captain, and then she was willing to do what was needed to win. And in Starfleet, that's kind of a rare trait, and that's you can tell that matches his personality. So I think he was definitely targeting her because he knew what kind of officer she was.
Yeah, I think that this being my second lap through this season, the picture is a lot more clear since I've seen the end of it. I think Lorca's strategy is a little easier to follow, like when you do it in reverse. It's kind of like following through a maze, but doing it backwards, because it's easier to know which ways are right and wrong. And I think, without getting into any spoilers about anything going on in the future, I think this totally makes sense, that he would have orchestrated it at this point. But coming from the perspective of maybe seeing this through the first time, it does seem a little, out of place. Like, I remember thinking, there's no way that he actually orchestrated everything that happened there, but it definitely was like one of those, that's interesting sort of moments. We also see in this part of the episode that Burnham's walking through a ship of people who all know who she is and know what she did, and she's obviously not the favorite person of anybody on the ship. Even as she meets with Saru the first time on here, that was kind of an icy introduction, or icy reintroduction, don't you guys think?
Oh, very. Saru is totally by the book, and he was questioning her the whole throughout even the first two episodes constantly. You can kind of see that already building up, and so now Saru, who's second in command now, where Burnham was, is seeing Captain Lorca bring her on board, and he probably knows that it was set up, so he doesn't trust her now. And they did a really good job of building that suspense. And you're right, the people on the ship were looking at her and walking away from her, and she gets roomed with Tilly, and Tilly said, "Oh, the only Michael Burnham I know is the traitor. That's not you, right?" Like they just did a great job, and
Yeah.
not to mention this episode just. I mean, we finally see the Discovery ship. We meet the crew. I was super stoked. I loved a lot of the crew. I love this episode a lot because of that point alone.
Yeah, I think the part that I think cut deepest through this was when Saru told her that she apologized to him for what happened, or she said, "I'm sorry," and he said, "I think you're sorry, but you're a danger." And just her reaction at that point in time was kind of like, dang, like she really felt that one. And there was even another point later on, and I can't remember exactly what Saru said, but I do. I remember now. He said something to the effect of "I'm going to protect my captain like you should have protected yours." And I was like, "Oh damn, man, you're throwing off the gloves there."
Right, daggers through the heart. So, Will, what did you think meeting Tilly and the rest of the crew? So, we also seen who's the helmswoman?
Can't
With
remember her name either, but
Yeah,
she was on the Shenzhou, and now she's on this one with the cranial augmentations.
right. So she's the only other. I think her and Saru are the only two, right, from the original ship.
Good question. I was thinking there was at least one more, but I can't remember off the top of my head who it might have been.
Maybe. So, anyways, like, and they are both obviously the helmswoman doesn't do a lot of talking, which they kind of fix that here in season 2 coming up. But the whole season 1, that was probably one of the main complaints that we kind of had as we were watching it, was we knew nothing about any of the other characters, just the main ones.
Right, but I mean, you have a lot of helmsmen and stuff in the Next Generation that you've never really learned who they are. There's red shirts. So in Star Trek: The Next Generation, who you've seen Chief O'Brien a couple times, and you see him on the bridge and everything, but he was never really had his own plots until later on in the series, like season 4 is really when he started to actually get more vocal, more lines, more plot points, things like that. And I think maybe going into season 2 and season 3, as I've seen some of it, but I haven't seen as much as you guys. I think going into season 2 and 3, we're going to see a lot more of those extra bridge staff get more involved. At least I'm hoping anyway. Like I love the robot looking thing or whatever that is. It can't be an android.
You will get a full episode almost. Well, not a full episode. You'll get a good dedication to her. You learn a lot about her.
Near a whole episode.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited to learn more about the crew. I'm not like enamored, or I don't really feel like I'm missing anything not knowing who they are. I mean, I don't want to be overwhelmed because we've already gone through the first 2 episodes. There wasn't much on the Discovery itself, and then going into episode 3 so far, I'm meeting all new people aboard this all new ship, and it's almost like, well, I just got to kind of know the people in the first one. So I think maybe they were just kind of building up the core cast, the core ensemble, and then kind of expand on it from there by going into season, or episodes 3 and 4, hopefully.
Well, I'll give you my thoughts on that. Like I kind of felt like going through two episodes of the season without even like introducing the ship that is the title of the show, and really getting into that crew was kind of like an adrenaline rush, right? Like I know that the first time through, Eric and I were like theorizing like crazy, like when they court-martialed her and sentenced her to life in jail. I remember having that conversation with Eric, going, "What the hell, dude? Like how are we even going to get through? Like she's on every poster. She is the central role of everything, and now she's in jail, and she's not even on the Discovery yet. So going into season 3, like I really had no idea how they were going to cross that bridge. And so now that we're on the Discovery, like things started to change a little bit, but even her demeanor didn't match up with what I thought like a title character would be like. So
she's very reserved and quiet in season episode 3.
Compared to where she was at in episode 1 and 2, yeah, you're right. Like it was like a complete 180, and so I don't know. Like at this point in the season, the first time through, I had no idea what was coming up next, but I kind of liked this as an intro. Like it really kept me at the edge of my seat. That's for sure.
Well, I remember when we got that first black alert, and we're like, okay, what the hell's a black alert? Like,
That
what's
was going
going
to
on
be my
here?
next question. Like what did you guys think of the black alert the first time that you heard that?
I mean, I had no clue. Like, I think we even talked about like what is a black alert, and we didn't know at all until like later on in this episode you find out. But like
go ahead, Will. I saw you come off mute.
So I guess my question that I still don't understand, it coming from a non-Trek, didn't watch it religiously and all this other stuff. So the black alert, when they did it in this episode 3 for the first time, they were able to do a jump, right?
Yes, they
Okay.
they didn't really communicate they did at that point. All we saw was just some condensation buildup, so we really didn't know what was going on at that point.
Right, but there was no tardigrade. And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and I know we haven't gotten there yet to the later episodes, but I'm still kind of confused by how did they make the jump? Like there was what technology let him do that?
Yeah. So, okay. So
it was really confusing to me. So it's like all of a sudden we're doing these jumps, and then later on, and I know we're going to get to it, but then later episodes, it's like all of a sudden we need these other things to be able to make it work. And I'm like, why doesn't it make sense?
All right. So I'm gonna pause you right there. Like definitely hold that question. So when we get to episode 4, that we can talk about that a little more, because I have some thoughts on that.
Sounds good.
Cool. So, kind of to get it back on track right now, Lorca assigns Burnham to work in I don't know what they called that. It was kind of the top secret laboratory where the spores were held and whatnot. And even at that point, we didn't know that they were spores, but we do meet Stamets the first time, and he's kind of like, to me, that uncommon sort of engineer where he's got kind of a real pointed personality and a character trait that is a little different than any other engineer we've had. And he's very cocky, and Tilly's in there working with him too, which is a big contrast between her personality and Stamets' personality. But you kind of throw Burnham in the mix there, and he is not willing to give her any details whatsoever, only that she's supposed to take a look at the source code. She's not supposed to know what it's supposed to be for, and she's just going to debug it. And that's where, like, at this part of the episode, like, I think you start to figure out a little bit why Lorca wants Burnham on the ship, because in a very short amount of time, she sort of deduces what's going on, and that the black alert and the spores and stuff are related to one another. It's behind that door, and she's sort of picking up little pieces of what's going on. And they did something that I saw in this time through that I didn't see the first time. When Stamets comes out of the the airlock from the other room into this one, like she's looking at his left shoulder. He kind of like just goes about his thing, but they show like the sprinkling of something coming off of his left shoulder. And now, having watched the whole episode and even through this season, we know that that's the spores that they need to make this spore drive work. Did you guys catch that?
I did.
Will, did you catch that your first time through?
I don't know that I actually paid attention, but I still don't understand the significance. I mean, we knew about it was the spore drive, right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't at that point, no, huh?
Okay.
Well, you're right. I don't know if I caught that the first watch through, but the second one, I do remember that being like, oh, okay. he had spores on him.
Okay.
So you're just saying it was detail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's detail that for me added to the second time through, and it was almost a payoff to watch it a second time because now I'm picking up on all these little clues that they gave us during the first episode.
Mm.
And I don't know. For me, I like television shows that do that. That know that Trek nerds like me or like Eric or Ben or something like that. They're gonna watch these multiple times through. Are gonna pick up on little details. That are like, oh crap, I didn't see that. And that's what I'm looking forward to when we get into some of these later episodes that are going to be meatier and in their storyline, that we're going to pick up on things that wouldn't even have like registered on our radar the first time through.
Yeah. So something I'd like to talk about, one thing you had mentioned was Stamets' relation, or how he kind of acted. He's very cocky and arrogant, and kind of how he portrayed himself as far as like with his knowledge and everything. I think that just comes with him being the smartest one in the room kind of feeling.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you're the smartest one in the room for so long, it's going to be like, oh, you've got this level of arrogance. And obviously when he was kind of said that it was his, if it was his technology and all this other stuff, him and another guy on the sister ship. But one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was Tilly. So something that kind of has bothered me, I guess, having since watched this and in a couple episodes after this, was it makes me wonder how a character like Tilly, with her lack of confidence, lack of a better word there, how did she make it into Starfleet? Because one of the things that that you need to be able to self-confident and to be able to you think, I always go back to
Barclay.
Thank you.
Exactly what I was going to say.
I always go back to Broccoli, and when I think about him, and I'm thinking, well, he got into Starfleet, but I'm like, man, it's kind of like they're just going to let. Is that where it started? I don't know. Just kind of reminded me a lot of him.
Well, so she's book smart, and I don't know. We don't know that quite yet. Like, so I'm sort of meta storying here a bit, but we don't know that she's book smart yet. But she's book smart, and she's actually theoretically smart too. So, she is able to accomplish some things and think through some things later on in this series that I think are unique to her perspective and whatnot. And so I think her character starts to gain some speed there. But I think that it seems like she's sort of fresh out of the academy, pretty fresh out of the academy. And so she's probably the kind of person that steps into a situation like that and takes a semester or two to really find their identity or find who they are before they're able to start to shine.
No, and I can see that. It just, you talk about the contrast between, personalities. You've got the timid and you've got the strong. And, that was basically when you think opposites not really attract, but maybe work well to each other. What's that adage there?
Opposites attract.
Well, yes, but
Paula Abdul told us that in the 80s.
No, but that wasn't what I was looking for. It was more of like, it's kind of that concept, I guess, of opposites attract. But when you have someone in a relationship that is more easygoing and then someone that's more outgoing, you kind of, you play off each other's weaknesses. What's really that saying? Well, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, they're complementary.
They complement each other. Yes, and I think that's something that they in the overall character development. I think that was a good choice.
Well, and I'll tell you another thing that I liked is the casting of those characters, though, too. Like, is different than any other Star Trek series we've had. Like, Tilly is like, I don't know, like the way that she says stuff. Like, Burnham walks up because she's the only familiar face she knows in that room. Burnham walks up to her and stands next to her until he's like, we have assigned stations, and sort of shoos Michael away because she's not really sure, that being associated with Burnham is such a good thing at this time. And Stamets, his response is like, look, I know you think you're smart and I know you think you're here for a reason, but you're going to do what I say because I'm the smart dude. And, he gets super cocky and I keep using that word cocky, but that's not even right. There's a conceit level there Yeah, there's arrogance there that I don't know, trumps everybody else except for maybe Lorca on the ship. But I think, and I don't remember if we get it in this episode, and we do. Later on in this episode, we see Stamets sort of break down from that a bit. And actually, that's a pretty decent segue right there, because right after this whole sequence here with Burnham, sort of picking through everything that's being said in the source code and what's going on, and we learn that there's an emergency that breaks out on the Glen after Stamets has had a pretty lengthy conversation with his counterpart on the Glen. And so the Discovery is tasked with going to the Glen to figure out what happened, recover some data and whatnot. And through that, Burnham and Tilly and Stamets and one other person, Commander, what the heck's her name? Commander Landry, have to go on an away mission to the Glen to figure things out.
I want to say one thing first.
Yeah, go for it.
So when we first met Stamets and Tilly, I didn't really like either character.
Really?
I definitely remember thinking that. I was like, I don't like Stamets. He's too cocky. Like, I didn't like where he was going. And Tilly, well, it's not that I didn't like Tilly. I just didn't appreciate her yet.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that because I definitely remember having that thought, and I was like, I'm not a big fan of either one of those characters right now. But
well,
that changes.
I agree. I agree with you. And something I actually want to kind of talk about with Brad, you had started to mention, but I just thought it was the best line in this episode was when Tilly goes up to Michael and says, we kind of have assigned stations. And then Burnham goes over and is asking Stamets a question. He goes, what do you think? We have like assigned seats here?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was great. Because basically it just showed how Tilly was really trying to make sure that she was pushing her off.
Well, it was funny because Tilly wanted a friend so bad. She was trying to be friends with her. And then she found out she was Michael Burnham. And then, the next scene is we see that.
Well, and not to get too far ahead in the episode, and it may even have been the next episode, but it's because of her aspirations. Like, she doesn't want to be associated with somebody that's going to stop her from getting what she wants.
Right.
So anyway, let's get back on track real quick, and we'll get to that. But so we find our I was going to say Furious Five, but that's not really the right thing. We find our 5 people on the Glen. Almost as soon as they get on there, they encounter a Klingon, and the Klingon does, to me, the most un-Klingon thing that I've ever seen a Klingon do, and he just looks at him, puts his finger in the air, and goes shh, and then he's like ripped apart by a thing that we don't know what it is yet. Were you guys surprised by that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, number one, we see a Klingon on Discovery, so the whole time you're thinking, well, their experiment went bad.
Not on Discovery, it was on the Glen.
Sorry, on the Glen. And the whole time you're thinking their Discovery went bad, and now we see this. So then you're thinking, wait, did the Klingons do this? Like, it was a good little twist.
Well, I was just thinking it was very uncharacteristic of not only what we've known about Klingons, but what we've seen about these Klingons, just unrelentless bloodlust, just, with all the fury, all of a sudden being scared out of their gourd enough to be able to be like, oh, you guys got to be quiet. We don't want to attract this thing. This thing is deadlier than we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I was not expecting that. I mean, they led up this whole part right here like it was going to be the Klingons, because Lorca said that they were on the Klingon border, and Stamets made a big deal about the fact they were on the Klingon border. And then we board the Glen, and there's a bat'leth laying on the ground, and we're like, oh yeah, this is the Klingons that did this. And all of a sudden, wham, like the only Klingon we meet is like torn to shreds. I don't know. I didn't expect it. It was cool though.
Oh, I totally agree. I think it was a great thing to do, because they could have just, not even had the Klingon there. It wouldn't have thrown us off at all. We were back to something went wrong with the experiment.
Right. And it made me started to wonder, like, this is where I kind of started to deviate from my initial thought that this was going to be just all about the Klingon War with the Federation. And, it kind of took a left turn to the Klingon War, while prominent, was more of a sideline story. it was more the backdrop of what was going on in the universe around them, but wasn't really the story of what was driving their characters overall.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Right. And then this just felt like the starting point of that. There's basically felt like the first 2 episodes were setting up the realm. But yeah.
All right, so up to this point, what did you guys think was going on? What did you think Black Alert was? What did you think this happened to this ship? I mean,
I tried to I tried to sort of discern what it was based on, what Stamets was saying to, what's his name, his counterpart, some of the little things that Michael Burnham had picked up on, and I really wasn't sure yet. Like I know Michael Burnham's mindset right now is that it's some sort of weapon, and I think she even says so just shortly after where we're at in this recap, that she thinks it's a weapon and that Lorca's trying to harness a weapon and whatnot. And so I think maybe in my mind, I might have been thinking that the first time through. I still think that they were just vague enough to not really give us a good idea as to what exactly they were experimenting on. But I guess they did mention these measurements of distance or power that Stamets did, that I probably alluded to the fact that it was not a weapon, but some kind of mode of transportation. But I didn't pick up on it the first time.
I distinctly remember thinking they were working on their own cloaking device at this point.
Oh, really?
I distinctly remember that, but we obviously find out here real soon. So that's probably why I never told you, because I just remember in my head thinking, is this a cloaking? Are they trying to make their own cloaking device like the Klingons have? That's what I thought.
Interesting.
I thought it was more of a weapon because I thought they even talked about the Discovery being the secret weapon or whatever. Is that something that Lorca said?
Well, I'd consider cloaking a weapon, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Done.
Yeah, but I was thinking more like destroyer of planets kind of thing. Something that's the like Death Star of the Star Trek universe.
Right. Well, so after this part, we find ourselves back on the Discovery, and Lorca's still on that warpath to get Michael to stay on the ship, and she's determined, and she even promises Saru that she's going to be on the prison transport ship back out of there. But Lorca tempts her with, I think the line that finally sold her was that she helped us start the war 6 months ago. Did she want to be a part of the solution to end it? And I think as soon as Lorca said that, she had him hooked, or he had her hooked in hook, line, and sinker, and that she was going to stay on the Discovery.
Yeah, it was definitely a pivotal moment right there, and you could kind of see it in her eyes. Totally agree with you.
Yep. But Saru's ticked, isn't he? Saru is ticked, isn't he?
Oh yeah. I mean, you could definitely tell he was not happy about the situation, and that goes on too. I mean, as we'll find out.
Yeah. So we kind of landed the plane on episode 3. Any other thoughts before we move on to episode 4?
I mean, at this point, I was super into it. I loved the mystery. I loved Lorca. I liked a lot of the crew that we knew. I still wasn't sure with Stamets and Tilly, like I said, but they do, even when they go on the away mission. I remember liking them a little bit more just from the away mission. But when that first encounter, it was just the only time I was really like, I don't really like either one of these. And then they kind of grow on you a little bit. Kind of like a fungus.
No, I see what you did there.
See what I did? Yeah. Spoilers.
All right. So episode 4, entitled "The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry." That might win the award for the longest name of an episode ever, and I did not know that was the name of this episode until probably 15 minutes before we started recording. So this episode starts with, I think, probably one of my favorite scenes out of all Trek. And that is when we see this sequence of an electrical storm that is like going nuts, and it's like lightning all over the place, and you start to see these rock formations starting to come up from the ground, and stalactites meeting stalagmites and forming up on solid thing. Like, it reminded me of the Borg, and I was like, oh crap, what, I had no idea what was going on. And then they zoom out, and it's a matter replicator creating a uniform. So be honest, did you guys see that coming?
Oh no, definitely not. I mean, it was a great way to show. I guess the graphics not the right term, I guess, but the detail that they're able to make in Discovery, and if you've been watching, I think we complimented on this. It was a darker show, and it was more based like the movies than any Trek that we've seen so far for a TV show, at least.
Yeah.
What's the right term there? What do they call that? I'm missing the right term. Anyways, it was definitely a different approach to Trek on TV, and I think this is just showing us that, because this is something you'd see in a movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it does seem like the intro sequence to a Star Trek movie. But anyway, I don't know. Something about that scene just really tickled me the right way. I thought it was just amazing to see. Like, I think we've always taken the replicator for granted, and to see it, like, I guess it's not a replicator on this, it's a matter synthesizer, but either way, it's still like was really cool to see that happen. Anyway, okay, so I made a big deal out of that, and we can move on.
No,
so what's up?
I just want to say I do totally agree with you. I thought it was a really cool scene.
I thought it was neat.
All right. So Lorca decides that Michael's best use on the Discovery is to study what they're calling the Ripper, or that animal from the Glen that we I think we found out at the end of last episode and in the beginning of this one that Lorca had it transported over to the Discovery. Now that was a shock to me, but as we kind of learn a little bit more about Lorca, it made a little more sense. He introduced us to his I don't know, panic room of death with all the different, methods of war and all the weapons he had and whatnot. And he's sort of showing them off to Michael Burnham as though their trophies are. He says it's where he goes to study the art of war, but I don't know, it seemed a little dark to me. But that's fine. Anyway, we have Michael has been tasked with figuring out how the Ripper or the tardigrade is able to just tear through, solid duranium, and is, basically killed a whole team of Klingons without being, damaged at all. And just as we start to get into that, though, the Discovery is sent on another mission, or is asked to join another mission to defend, and I don't remember the name of the planet, but a key dilithium resource in the area is under attack from the Klingons. And Lorca sort of overconfidently says, oh yeah, we can use our new technology to get there quicker, and we'll get there, and we'll take care of this. Despite the fact that I think Stamets was a little nervous about making a jump that big. So right during this scene as well, we get Michael Burnham and that Commander Landry in the room, and they're trying to study this tardigrade or whatnot. And I personally in this was kind of excited because that Commander Landry is, and for the rest of the people listening that are a part of that sci-fi crowd, you may recognize her as being a member of the Battlestar Galactica cast, and she's actually a pretty key character in that show. And I think that the way she played that character in Battlestar Galactica, and I won't give any spoilers away on Battlestar Galactica, but it really played well into what she was doing for this show here. So I was really excited she was going to be a part of the show, and then almost immediately next scene, she's dead. So that sucked for me. Did you guys see that coming?
I did not. I thought she was going to be a mainstay. I liked her character. She was very gruff. She fit with Lorca very well.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I did not see that coming, and it felt almost a little bit cheap.
Yeah, a
But
little bit.
yeah, I was sad.
Yeah.
Well, another, chief security officer getting killed. It's just par for the course for Star Trek, right?
She was
Well, at
wearing a
least for
red
this
shirt.
Star Trek.
Right.
So anyway, it's kind of at this point here that we, at least Burnham sort of gets the impression that and I'll keep calling it the Ripper, is more self-defense than it is anything else. Because I think at that point, like, it was probably startled, or kind of a scared animal that's just going to lash out on whoever. That's kind of how she got killed. But when they try to go to Black Alert this time, and they try to make a jump further than they ever had before, the tardigrade, or the Ripper, has almost a chemical reaction that Burnham notices and realizes that he's connected to the spores and the spore drive and the way that they're trying to do the Black Alert and everything. And she brings that to Lorca's attention. So we kind of get a little bit of a teaser right there, what's coming up next. And I don't remember, is this when we learn? Yeah, we learn at this point here, as they make those couple of jumps, that the tardigrade really is the answer to the question of how they're going to go further, and how the spore drive is going to work. Oh, I forgot to mention that from the Glen, they recovered that chair, or that piece of technology that they put in the spore booth, or, for lack of a better term, whatever that was in the engineering section, that actually connected to the Ripper to be able to allow it to navigate. Did you guys pick up on anything through that sequence? Uh-oh.
I saw them pick up a box, but I didn't fully fathom what it was. So I'm still kind of confused. Was the tardigrade or the Ripper, did they already know to connect it to the ship's spore drive?
So they did not. And it was when Burnham saw the reaction that the tardigrade had when they went to Black Alert for that small jump, that she realized that it was connected to it in some way. And so when she brought that to Lorca's attention, the first thing they did was beamed it onto that storage facility, or the spore, where they were growing the spores at. And the tardigrade just kind of goes in there and is like communicating with the spores and using the spores to almost like resonate with them. And I think she starts to put two and two together, that this tardigrade has almost a connection to the spores, and it's what we know at this point, that Stamets knows that the spores are what allow the Discovery to travel across the mycelial network, and that they're only able to make very short jumps because they're not able to compute the navigational mathematics or whatever to be able to compute that jump from A to B if it's really far. And so where they're at, the stalemate here is they don't have a navigator. So when Burnham connects the dots between the tardigrade and the spores and the mycelial network and that piece of technology, they weren't able to figure out what it was for. I think that's when it kind of clicked with her that the tardigrade, the Ripper, was kind of the computation, or the navigational computer. Does that make sense? I kind of just verbal vomited there a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say you lost me, but the whole thing is confusing to me anyway.
Well, so I'm like, the reason it was kind of like so, kind of just plunked out there like that is because I'm trying really hard not to spoil something in the future. So if you're okay with it, let's set it off to the side and let's pick this back up again later, because I don't want to spoil something, and I think we're only a handful of episodes away from learning something that's key to this whole conversation.
Nope, I get it. No, but just my question was, what that box that they brought back,
yeah,
and the tardigrade, did they already know that the tardigrade?
No, they did not.
Okay, so where did where did the Ripper come from?
Well, they didn't know it on the Discovery, but that was the thing that it was sort of foreshadowed earlier in the show when Stamets was talking to his counterpart on the Glen, that they had figured out a way to make longer jumps.
So you think that they already knew that the Ripper was how they connected to the network?
Well, I'm sort of dicing up words here. They, being those on the Glen, did know that. They, being
That's
those
what I
on the
meant.
Discovery, did not know that.
Roger.
And so that's where Burnham sort of put all the pieces together and recognized that the tardigrade was that missing piece.
Wouldn't you think they would have shared that information at being a sister ship, that, hey, we're onto something here. We're going to send you all our notes before we attempt it and get blowed up?
Okay, so no, and I'm gonna reference outside of Star Trek as the reason why. And there's a movie, and I don't remember what it's called. Might be called The Imitation Game. I don't remember. It's got Benedict Cumberbatch in it, and he's Alan Turing. And anyway, the whole point of that movie is that they are trying to crack the code on the Enigma, right? And they had two different competing groups of scientists trying to crack the same code, and it was the competition between the two that kept the progress on that project moving forward. And so we kind of apply that same sort of framework here. I think that they had the Discovery and the Glen, and since Stamets and that other dude were the two that had come up with this technology over the course of, I think he said 12 years, that at some point Starfleet separated them, put them on two identical ships, and said, okay, figure this out. And so it was more like a game, because there was even that moment where Stamets is talking to him, and every time he says, oh, we figured out a way to go X number of, this far, and Stamets is like, shut up, I hate you, how'd you do that? And then he said something else, and Stamets goes, shut up, I hate you, how'd you do that? And so there was obviously this back and forth between them, and that competition, I think, is what helped them advance the technology.
That can make sense.
Okay, well, I did it right that time. I don't think I used any conversational punctuation in any of that.
I don't think that's needed.
Okay.
You did a good job explaining it.
Okay, thanks. So I think in this episode we're at the point now that we've made this super long jump. We've realized that the tardigrade is the key to computing that long navigation, and the Discovery shows up to save the day on at that dilithium place. So we realize we're going to do that. So that's really all we get for Discovery for this episode. But we get to go and we talk to T'Kuvma again on the Klingon flagship that we learn has been stranded at that binary star system since the battle that was in episode 2. So you got to think they've been stranded on this ship with remnants of all 24 of the houses of Klingon on this one ship, and the ship is not able to go anywhere. And so it's been stuck there this whole time. And we find out that maybe not everything is all diplomatic on the ship, because one of the other leaders of another house steps up and says, hey, we've turned your entire crew, nobody is for you anymore, Voq, and we're going to kick you out. And they beam him over to the dead carcass of the Shenzhou, which probably hasn't been powered on in that entire 6 months, and it's just been sitting there, and they kind of leave him there to die. And so this was kind of to me, a turning point to where we don't really know what's going on with the Klingons, what is going to happen next, but all we know is that there's a little bit of a power struggle to take hold or take grasp of the reins of all of the Klingon houses. So the only other thing I think we learn here is that L'Rell, the female Klingon that was there, she makes sure that Voq knows that she is still in allegiance with him, And yeah, I think we'll find out more about that later. So anyway, do you guys have any more thoughts about this episode? What do you think so far?
I think this is where we find out that they ate Captain Georgia, right? Is this the part where they say how delicious she was, or something like that? Like we ate the meat off her bones months ago, or something like that? Because they're eating the dead now.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest in that even the second time through, I didn't pick up on that detail. If that's actually what happened, I didn't pick up on it at all.
Yeah, they say it at some point. I just didn't know if it was right here or not. I can't remember
Oh,
for
wow,
certain.
crap. I did not know that.
So I thought this was really cool. I'm not a huge fan of the whole Klingon story. Not just based off their new look either. Like I don't know. Like I like it and I don't like it in different parts. I don't like the evil Klingon because, well, I guess I just cut that out. So I like the whole how he brought food after they finally get over. They go to Discovery and they get the reactor core or whatever it was they were trying to get. I forget what it was, and they get it back, and they're finally going to get the ship fixed, and everybody's going to be able to get food and everything or whatever when they leave. Well, it turns out that what's the evil Klingon's name?
Takuma?
Yeah, I think that's him.
Are you talking about the albino?
No, the one that brings food to the ship and steals the ship from him.
Cole, Core. It's not Core. It's Cole.
Okay.
I think.
Cole's come over and brought food and turned all the crew against Takuma, and so they end up, sending him back over to the Shinzu just to die, basically, because that was the spy chick's name. What's her name? God, I'm so terrible with names.
L'Rell.
That was L'Rell's idea, and basically, she pretends like she's gonna jump ship and join him anyways, and then once they beams him over, and like you mentioned, she basically tells him, "No, we're gonna play, we're gonna play the long con here, or we're gonna survive this way." And so, like, I kind of like how they went with that storyline a little bit, but I don't know, like, Klingons don't tend to like the weak, and I feel like the whole time this Takuma has been the weakest link, and so it just seems a little bit off-putting for Klingons to do that. But I'm not totally against it because everybody likes an underdog, right? It just puts me in a weird spot, I guess, where like I like it and I don't like it. I like this. I like the story they're doing it. I just don't. I wish it wasn't the Klingons, I guess.
Will, what are your thoughts so far?
The whole Klingon thing, I love the Klingons. I'm not a fan of them in this. I'm not a fan of how convoluted the story is. I can barely wrap my head around what the names are, as well as who they are. And I'm not a fan of the whole Klingon. I like the war aspect, the like the story behind the war and whatever. It's just that the battle between who's going to be ruling the empire is really confusing to me. For whatever reason, I just can't wrap my hand around it. I'm not a fan.
Yep. Okay.
No, you nailed it, because I remember being super confused about it when I watched it the first time too. It does get better the second time when you, one, know what's happening because of later episodes, and two, have a second watch to kind of reprocess everything. Because I do remember being very confused the first time too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was too, and I still think there's parts of it that I don't completely understand, but I like what you said. I think Will, you said it earlier in the episode that like this was just sort of second fiddle to everything else. It was more of just like giving background flair or background character to the whole show so far. One of you guys said that earlier.
Yeah, no, I said that one. But yeah, I enjoy the aspect of the backdrop, but I do, and I'm happy that it's not the main focus. I'm glad they go into it every once in a while, but they don't stay there the whole time. There's a couple episodes they go back to it for a little longer than I would like, but for the most part, the story is about other things beyond the war. I mean, the reason for what drives them is but it's not constant like warfare and battle and going to take this planet. We got to go rescue these people. We got to go steal this, and
Right. All right. Anything else in your guys' minds?
One thing you didn't mention at the very beginning of this episode, they're doing a fake battle simulation, but you don't know it's fake. I thought that was a really good scene.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
That was all I got left. So,
Well, and
this
then Riker comes out and turns the holodeck off.
no, that's Voyager, or
No, that's
Enterprise.
Enterprise. Hey, so like the only other thing I wanted to say, sorry to cut you off, Eric, but the only other thing that at this point in the episode, we know what the spore drive is. We know this is what 50 years, I don't remember how many years of the timeline, but this is like way in the past from Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, or Voyager. And we've got Voyager way the flip out in the middle of the Delta Quadrant. Why didn't we resurrect this technology for one last showdown to bring Voyager home? Like, that whole series could have been solved if they just would have gotten the spore drive out of mothballs and got him home.
I remember us talking about this. Like, why have we never heard of this technology if it can do this?
Yep.
So, like, what's going to happen?
I am like, if I think back the first time we watched this episode, I am definitely wrestling with the disparagement between technology now and technology in the original series.
I'm going to tell you guys right now, I think that the information is going to become classified under Section 31. And that's why not only can we not use it, but it's not talked about. It's never given an option. Most people don't even know about it anymore. I imagine most of these people are not going to be living long. As far as like, I don't imagine at the end of this series, I don't believe anybody on Discovery is still going to be alive. And if they are alive, they're going to be part of Section 30, besides Pike.
Stay tuned next week.
All right. I was getting ready to say, let's end on that note.
All right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the podcast. You can check out all the rest of our content on our website, maturemindedgamers.com. We do board games, video games, and much more. Have yourself a great day.